Good evening, race fans, and welcome to another round with Velocity Racing League for the 2022 VRL Cup Series for the Lone Star 200 here at Circuit of the Americas. My name is Mason Heimbaugh, joined alongside me, Gareth McAllister. Joined me in the booth here today with Team Goon Squad bringing you the action. 1080p 60 frames a second as we get ready for our qualifying to begin here today at COTA. Gotta say, it's going to be a good race here today, Gareth, even though, typically for these races for the VRL Cup Series, tends to see a little bit lesser numbers throughout, for these road course races in particular, but it's a challenge. It is a real challenge for these drivers, taking it beyond the oval out here onto a road course. And here at Circuit of the Americas, I think it's going to be quite the challenge here today, Gareth, being that, this is a fast track made for, the likes of Formula One and MotoGP, where, guys are ripping it around the track 160 plus miles an hour. So it's a vast difference from being inside of a four-wheel open-wheel machine as compared to the ARCAs that we see here. So, Gareth, what are your kind of expectations? What are your thoughts and feelings going into today's race? And, given how few drivers that we see here today, or, well, how less drivers we see here today for today's race, what are you kind of feeling? What's your favorite pick of the day here? Let's start off with that, Gareth.
Well, firstly, good day, Mason, and good day to everyone else joining us here in the spectator area while we broadcast this one. Yeah, look, it's going to be a challenge for all these drivers because it is a big, heavy car. It's got very small little brakes because obviously it's designed not to need them all that much as it goes around a lot of the ovals, but it should be an interesting one. Very difficult car to handle, especially going down through the gears. You can get loose very easily if you mistime your shifts incorrectly, so it should be an interesting one. Look, I'd say the favorite is probably Aaron Smith. We've seen him do just some crazy racing, and he's been incredibly fast and got a lot of wins under his belt, but you never really know how this one can shape out, as it's just quite different to what we're expected to see with the usual oval tracks, and I think that's why some of the drivers have chosen to sit this one out. They're just not quite confident in themselves or their abilities to really come out here and put on the show that they're expecting to see themselves doing.
As we see Aaron Smith getting right up on two wheels there for a second, and I think, Gareth, that's probably a good example of why we don't see too many drivers for these road course races is, it's tough. It's extremely tough, having to not only get your braking points perfect almost every single time with these cars, it seems like, because these things take a long time to slow down. Like Gareth alluded to, small brakes compared to what you would see even on the likes of something like a GT car, which, roughly the same size, if you will, but a lot different in that regard as far as braking is concerned. So, and that's just one aspect of road course racing that some drivers might not be particularly fond of, whether it's here at Circuit of the Americas or some of the other tracks that we've seen on the schedule, which, taking a look back, some of the races that we have seen on road courses, we've been to Virginia International Raceway, we've been to Road America, we've been to Road Atlanta, Sebring even, the second race of the season, that was quite a race to see in itself. So, a lot of this field, not all that familiar with road courses. They've definitely seen their fair share of them throughout this season. But yeah, Gareth, I think you're probably right. A lot of these guys, that aren't here today are just going to say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to throw in the towel for this one. You guys go have fun. I'm going to enjoy myself either a nice drink while watching the show, or I'm going to go take a nap. Either way, I think we've got some good action forming for today's race as Aaron Smith and Tony Hillbrands finally get themselves a time up here on the timing tower, as well as Howie Briss. Aaron Smith with the best time here, given the road course aficionado here in the 70 machine, the lean, mean yellow banana, as he was dubbed a few races ago by myself, unintentionally. But yeah, Aaron Smith, I mean, looking to go past 10 digits. Well, not 10 digits, but
Oh,
10
and a
wins.
spin.
Oh boy, a spin from the 70 machine into the wall. And that's going to be an abrupt end to his second lap here for his qualifying run. So I think that 2:16.85 is going to be his best time around. And going to be a tough time to beat here. The next time beyond that, Howie Briss in second place at 2:19.15. I mean, 3 seconds, that's quite a lot of time to have to gain on your opponent, especially on a road course. That's really, where you're losing time can be spread out over multiple turns or even, the entire track, if you will. So a lot of mistakes can be made, and a lot of time can be sacrificed from those mistakes very easily if you are not careful. So hopefully not going to see, too much struggle throughout today's race. Hopefully going to see drivers keep things relatively clean. I don't think we'll see any full course cautions, as throughout this season, throughout all the road course races we've been to, I haven't seen a full course caution yet. So I think we're expecting to see another full race under green flag. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it is 36 laps.
It is 36 laps.
36 laps, 200 kilometers is what our race notes is telling me, but part of me tells me that should be miles. But anyway, doesn't matter. Point being, 200 kilometers, 200 miles, whatever. They're both not the same. But anyway, as we continue on, Gareth, I mean, already starting to see strong performance from the likes of Aaron Smith. I mean, it's going to be tough to try and track down that 70 machine once we kind of get settled into the race here. Who do you think is, I mean, I can't really ask you too much, given that you're still relatively new to the season. But, I mean, given the past few races that you've seen here with VRL, I mean, who do you think is going to be out there giving Aaron Smith a good run for his money here tonight?
Well, just quickly on that, we saw Aaron Smith, how do I put this, eating a few curbs during his qualifying run, and I wasn't too sure about that over the long run if he continues to do that every lap, because while obviously his time is quite a bit faster than the rest of the field, that might not help him so much if the car gets unsteady too much over those curbs, and really just loses it. So there's a chance that he might accidentally spin himself out if he's not careful. So I'm not quite sure, but Howie Briss, I probably put my money on him to give Smith a bit of a run for his money, just because we've seen Briss do this all season long. The points speak for themselves. He is leading the championship at the moment, and he might not have the most amount of wins under his belt, but he just consistently is finishing in the top spots. And consistency is key to win championships, as they say. So I think you're definitely going to see him performing quite well here.
Yeah, there's definitely a good handful of drivers here that I think will perform pretty well today. I don't know if there's going to be any real kind of fights for the lead, for any battles between, say, Aaron Smith and any other driver here, because it's, well, at least for the likes of Aaron Smith, I mean, he's got a lot of pace behind that 70 car here on the road courses. I'm curious to see what it's going to be like once we go green, and you have the whole field kind of scrambling for positions, especially into this hairpin going into turn one, which we just saw James Coulibaly, the 22 Kodak Max Pontiac, make his way out of just a few seconds ago. That's going to be a real kind of tricky situation for these drivers. Getting yourself slowed down, getting yourself in a good line to be able to make it through that turn. I think there's going to be definitely some scrapping for positions in that turn. And I mean, frankly, throughout a lot of this field, there's a lot of good choke points that I think will definitely come into play here as Qualifying has wrapped up. Drivers going to get themselves ready for the start of today's event. Gareth, I mean, this is going to be one of probably the most exciting road course races of the season, given that right now we are ever so closer to the end of that season, and with the points battles continuing to go on, not necessarily for the first place spot, but for the top 3 as well as, I mean, going into the top 10, there are battles happening all over the place for position. So great to see that. But here is our starting lineup. Let's go ahead and run through it. Aaron Smith in the front row, the 70 machine taking that first place spot with Howie Briss. Rounding out our first row here, Tony Hilbrands. Charles Jurek going to be in our second row with Nicholas Lovell, Sean Williams in our third row, James Koulibaly and Benny Hogan. In our fourth row, Jaden Hopp, Tom Mercia in our fifth row, James Miller and Howie Dietrich in our sixth row. Gareth?
Yeah, then we got Patrick Colby starting in 13th and Scott Shire in 14th, which will make up our seventh row. And then we have Nicholas Corsell in 15th, Matthew Fitz in 16th, and rounding out the grid, William Britton in 17th position.
All right. As we see our drivers stacked up here behind the safety car here at Circuit of the Americas, the safety car now making its way for the formation lap here today for the Lone Star 200. After this is race number, I think 20. I want to get this wrong. I think it's race number 29. Yes, 29th race of the season. I gotta say, Gareth, this has been a phenomenal season with Velocity Racing League. The longest season that I've ever had the privilege to commentate for. A total of, I believe it's 36 races, 36, 32, somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, 36 it looks like. So I mean, yeah, one of the largest schedules that we have with Team Goon Squad, and one of the, frankly, one of the best series that we get the privilege of calling the action for. I mean, these guys have put on incredible racing week in and week out, and they continue to do so as the season gets closer and closer to wrapping up, and the points battles get ever so heated here, Gareth.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a couple drivers choosing not to start, Jaden Hopp and Tom Mercia. So we have Howie Dietrich in the pits, so I think he's might be opting to start from pit lane, expecting some shenanigans into turn 1, but I guess we'll see as the pace car heads off and they round the final left-hand bend onto the start-finish straight.
Coming out of the final turn onto the front straightaway. Drivers getting stacked up, bumper to bumper, awaiting the green flag to drop here for the first time. And we head off into turn number 1, the hairpin, here at Circuit of the Americas. Green flag drops, the lights are on, and away we go. Aaron Smith in the best spot that he can possibly be. Drivers scrapping for positions all over the track. Tony Hilbrands, he shoots his way up to the front, but he's not going to be able to hold it on long. Drivers all trying to make their way through turn number 1, out on to the short straight into turn number 2. Tony Hilbrands, after the dive into the lead, he finds himself falling back into position. James Koulibaly wiping out here, getting a little bit of a spin out of turn number 2 as drivers make their way through. The S's here. Look at this beautiful shot of drivers making their way through here, Gareth.
You have to love that shot. It's absolutely amazing to see the snaking effect that these drivers go through as they make their way up the small hill with the left-hand kink just there, as you see, and then go down into the very heavy braking zone into quite the tight corner for the left-hander for a very long straightaway. This is where Briss could really challenge Smith for the lead. If he gets down gets very heavy on the brakes, might hurt his run-out speed, but then again, it is a long straight, so could make up the time into the heavy braking zone after the end of said straight. As we've got battles all over. Looks like Sean, it's like, is this Williams, isn't it? It is Williams going after Hilbrands. not gonna make the move, probably not wanting to be too crazy with it very early on in this race. We are only lap 1 of 36 so far, so definitely something as they come to this very tight section of the racetrack. This final sector is certainly a hectic one to be sure, Mason.
Yeah, I gotta say, watching this from, watching this in the broadcast, watching it as a viewer, it might look like these drivers are not going that fast, and frankly, in terms of racing, you would be kind of correct. Only seeing top speeds of about 70 to 90 miles an hour through these turns, so drivers, again, they have to be extremely careful through these turns. They don't want to get these cars unsettled, as it is very easy to do so. And like Gareth alluded to earlier in the broadcast, kind of talking about some of the troubles that drivers might experience during today's race, having to go through gears while going through a turn. These are stick shift cars. These aren't your paddle shifting cars that you'd see in Formula One or even IndyCar. These definitely are a lot trickier to go through the gears and try and get yourself comfortable going into the turn, and that's only half the battle, right? There's a whole other list of things that you got to be wary of and keep yourself mindful of throughout today's race. And already, Gareth, lap 2, we're already starting to see the field get a little spread out here. Good shot going through the S's there, and you can see the pace difference starting to show its face for some of these drivers here on lap 2 as we're watching along with Charles Jurek in the 76 Day-Z machine.
Yeah, that car is definitely looking quite planted and pretty well for the most part. Might be cutting a little bit too much of the track there, though. I'm sure the track officials giving him a small off track for that one. I definitely think so. But he's finding himself, Jurek is finding himself quite in an interesting position because he's falling back a little bit to Miller. But there's quite a battle going on a little bit further back as the 81 car passes the 7, or looks for it. That's going to be Nicholas Corsell, and I believe that's... No, that's not Corsell. Why have my timing sheet is wrong?
We're looking at, we're currently locked down with Jaden Hopp here. Hopp's actually a lap down.
I thought I recognized that paint scheme, but I just couldn't for some reason. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's fine.
Good scraps happening though through this field. Sorry, continue on.
Yeah, no. That's fine. I was just thinking of that's Colby just in front. So, I wonder if Hop's one of those drivers who chose not to start with the rest of the field there, so making his way up and obviously expecting some kind of shenanigans towards the start of this one, and upon not seeing them, I believe that Hop's he's got his work cut out for him to get himself through the field. Double overtake to the second last corner. That's some impressive driving right there.
Indeed it was. That was a fantastic move from Jaden Hopp, the 81 machine, down to the inside around a handful of drivers. And again, bear in mind, Jaden Hopp here showed for a second there that he was a lap down. Now I'm seeing that he got his lap back. I'm not exactly certain how, unless race control made a bit of a boo-boo somehow. I'm not 100% certain here, folks, but either way, either how, great to see the moves from 81 DeWalt machine. Jaden Hopp, driver, giving it all he's got as he's challenging Scott Shire now for the 9th place position, going through the S's here, and someone just blew right on through that here as well. I believe that was James Coulibaly. Yes, the 22 machine finding himself getting a little bit bent out of shape there, but quickly recovering it and getting himself back into the groove of things and trying to find... He's real slow through that turn there. Just taking it real easy, folks. So, again, drivers have to be very cautious through these turns. You cannot just whip them, whip these cars around like they're, a GT car. As much as I would probably imagine that some of these guys would like that, these cars definitely don't handle that.
Absolutely not. These cars, they do produce quite a lot of downforce, but most of that is in a straight line. They don't have a whole lot of let's say, aero grip on these very flat racetracks, as we see a good battle here between Briss and Miller for our second position out on track, as Briss is looking a little bit slower than Miller into the corners, and thankfully no harm, no foul, as it looks like Miller was going to maybe get into the back of Briss, but he's going to get a much better run on the exit onto the final straight, or the front straight I should say, and the pass is made. James Miller showing a lot more pace than I was expecting early on in this race, so great to see him there challenging for that second position, and might even make his way up to Aaron Smith. I know that's a tall order, Mason, but you know, you never know with the banana, they could slip on the banana peel, so.
I couldn't agree more. As we're getting a good view from the blimp camera of drivers making their way out of turn 1 and into turn number 2 here. We're locked on with, you can't really see the numbers. You might be able to if you squint your eyes real good. Nicholas Lovell and Sean Williams, you can probably tell based on the bright blue and dark 37 machine, the dark black 37 car from this angle. But I mean, this gives you a really good idea of how big COTA really is. I mean, this is a truly massive track, and you know, for these drivers to tackle this course specifically is, I mean, it's got to be challenging first and foremost, but I gotta imagine it's got to be pretty fun taking these cars around this track. I mean, let's take a moment here, Gareth. I want to ride on board with one of our drivers and just kind of get a little bit of an idea of what we don't get to see up here in the commentating booth. As we're going to ride along here from the passenger side of James Coulibaly, the 22 machine, getting a good run here on the inside of Matthew Fitz. Not sure what turn this is here, but ooh, good exit there out of that turn, keeping himself right onto the inside of the 69. Matthew Fitz right on the bumper here, trying to get that momentum, that draft down this long straightaway, heading, I don't exactly have a turn number, but going to see if he can pull it off here once again through the next left-hander. And he's also got Nicholas Coruscant there in the 7 Sour Patch Kids machine. My gosh, I want Sour Patch Kids now. Every time I see that car, Gareth, I just have an itch to go get me some Sour Patch Kids. So I don't know if Nicholas Coruscant is, you know, with marketing with Sour Patch Kids, but it's definitely working.
Well, it's an interesting one, that, because I have actually never heard of Sour Patch.
Really?
Yeah, no, I have not seen it anywhere here in Down Underland, so.
You Aussies are missing out. You're missing out, Gareth.
I could tell you the amount of stuff you guys are missing out on, don't get me wrong. Mate, I tell you, I've been to the States a couple times. You guys are missing out on a lot of goodies.
You know, I've seen some of the treats and some of the meals that you folks enjoy down there, and you know, I've definitely been curious to have myself something outside of the American cuisine, as we don't really get a whole lot of that from time to time. But definitely always interested to try new things. Gareth, you're making me hungry. Stop it. I'm sitting here talking about food now.
I mean, you're the one who brought it up. I didn't bring it up to you.
Oh boy. So I mean, Gareth, right now at this point in the race, everything's pretty calm. Everything's pretty steady. We're seeing a lot of indications in our timing and scoring. You know, people going off track. Some drivers getting way bent out of shape and into, you know, sticky situations. But frankly, if we covered each and every single one of them, we wouldn't be able to cover the action of the race. That sounds a little mean, but
no, it's fine. That doesn't sound that bad. No, this look, you can get off tracks very easily at Circuit of the Americas, and it's not it's quite a forgiving track though. Like, as you can see, it's very, very wide, and even when you go off track, there's a little bit of pavement there to really work your vehicle back in. As you can see, a perfect example of that right there with Jaden Hopp just going a little bit wide and coming back on as if it didn't really hurt him a whole lot. And that kind of thing can happen, and this track was only built in 2012, so it's very, very new, and that's probably why it's very, very wide and very forgiving. As you said, they do run F1 here, so it's got to be a certain specification so that the FIA is happy to grant their Formula One vehicles to drive on it.
Yeah, and I mean, not only Formula One, but MotoGP as well, which, to my understanding, Circuit of the Americas actually had to undergo a resurfacing. I forget what particular section of the track, but I believe it was due to porpoising. For the MotoGP guys, it was essentially that they were just bouncing all over the place on the track, and it just made it a very precarious track to race on. And before Formula One would even go back to COTA, they had to fix that issue. They had to resurface the track in order to solve that issue. And since then, obviously, it has been, well, they did something to it. I don't know exactly if it is 100% fixed since the last season that we raced at Circuit of the Americas for Formula One, but I'm not 100% certain if all of that was resolved. I know there were still some minor issues last year, but for the simulation aspect of it, for the iRacing track here, things are a little bit different. I'm not exactly certain what year this scan was put in, so I don't know if this is a more recent version of Circuit of the Americas or a little bit older. Either way, point being here, these drivers still get a very good understanding of the track itself. They get an idea of where all the bumps and nooks and crannies are and where they can really push their cars and see kind of where the limits for these particular cars on this track exist. So, I mean, everyone has done a relatively good job here tonight, Gareth. I mean, keeping their cars clean and green here. Granted, we're not going to see any sort of cautions come out just because of how large this track is and how spread out we see drivers getting here at Circuit of the Americas. So it's very easy for drivers to kind of get stuck in their own little groove and have no one around to battle with, and are just stuck turning laps in hoping to see another car around the turn. But right now, lap 7 of 36, getting still about 7 or 8 more laps before we see that halfway point in today's race. And whoa, Lovell checking up to Sean Williams there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it looked like Williams broke a lot harder than Lovell was expecting, and so Lovell hooked a quick left so not to get into the back of Williams, and good by both drivers to avoid each other, as this is one of the few battles we've got going on. We've also got a battle going on for, it looks like, 13th place with Scott Shire and Matthew Fitz as well. But aside from that, like you said, it's getting fairly spread out. But as I say that, of course, there's another battle that's just came out of nowhere, which is the battle for 11th with Nicholas Corsell and James Koulibaly. So, there's tracks where you don't see many battles, and then there's tracks where you'll just get a battle every so often, every time you look, and that seems to be the case at the moment, as we see a small battle here, which is the one I was just mentioning with Corsell and Koulibaly. And they are half a second apart, so they're pretty close together as well.
Yeah, only these two drivers, as well as Sean Williams and Charles Jurek, the only battles happening out on track at this moment, and that's to be expected, to be honest. Again, these cars aren't exactly designed to be on road courses, so they don't follow nearly as closely as they would on their oval counterparts. Again, just purely because of the fact that these cars don't have the same brakes that you would see on other road course fitted race cars. So, these guys have to take a lot more time to be able to go through a turn, and it definitely takes them quite a bit of time to be able to slow these cars down enough to make those turns safely. Now, if you were to try excuse me, if you were to try and take these turns at, breakneck speeds, there you saw a little bit of a slip up from the 7 of James, Nicholas Coruscant. That's kind of what you can get here.
Take a breather, Mason. It's all right. Get yourself some water. Get yourself calmed down here in a second, as you don't really want to hear you be a bit sick. I hope you're not struggling too much with that. But yeah, we just see the pass there by James Coulibaly, sorry, on Nicholas Coruscant, and that was quite a nice, easy pass. I say easy, it wasn't easy, but it was a nice, calm pass after Coruscant made that small mistake coming out onto that small section of track there where there was a little bit of a straight, and just getting the rear tires loose a little bit underneath him. So as you can see there, once again, nice save from Nicholas Coruscant. You saw I'm sure it feels a lot worse than what it looks in the driver's seat at the moment, but you just saw the rear end just step out. So wondering if the tire management side of things, it shouldn't be as big of an issue as it is on a lot of these oval tracks, but certainly Coruscant, I'm betting, is probably hoping that he can come in and get some in the not too distant future. We do have a fuel window of approximately 20 to 23-ish sort of laps, so we should be seeing them come in. They will need one stop before they make it all the way to the end here. Whether they come in early for tires, I would say probably not, because I think it's going to hurt their time more than it is going to advance it. But yes, so you can see definitely struggling with the handling of that ARCA car at the moment.
Yeah, it's he doing all that he can to keep it in a straight line. It is tough going out here at COTA. And I mean, these drivers are making it look easy, folks. Like I can't stress to you enough how difficult it is to take an ARCA car and rip it around a track like this. It takes a serious amount of skill and really just a level of attention that, man, it's hard to find. It's definitely hard to find, and I think could be, oh boy, there it is, the 7 Nicholas Coruscant with a little bit of a slide out the rear end as he made that exit of the turn. Doing a good job of keeping it together and trying to get himself back up behind James Coulibaly in the number 22 machine. And I mean, both of these drivers are going to be fighting kind of the same issues here. Keeping these cars straight, trying not to let themselves go, get too slow here, because, again, you don't want to go too fast through these turns, because then you're going to see yourself spinning out. You're going to end up in a wall. Well, maybe not so. COTA is pretty big. You probably won't end up in a wall unless you are on the inside of one. Anyway, point being here, yeah, so with the way things are right now with, oh boy, I thought Nicholas Coruscant just got banished from the race there for a second, but nope, he's still out here. He's still good. And
just a little blink.
Just a little blink. Just a little one. That definitely would have been a lot worse if it was on the oval, but here, given how much room that these guys have with one another, I don't think it would be too much of a stress. But what is going to be kind of a question, Gareth? I mean, I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, talking about pit strategy, or pit stops rather, not necessarily pit strategy, but 20 to 22 laps, I believe, was our fuel window. So, I mean,
yeah, I think I might have accidentally mumbled through that one a little bit, but yeah, 20 to 23 laps, give or take, and it should be around about then, though, and they have 3 sets of tires behind pit wall, which I highly doubt that they will need to use that many.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be going through that many sets of tires here. I think this is going to be pretty much run it till the end, and yeah, I don't expect to see any restarts happening here today. If there are any restarts, I would be genuinely surprised, to say the least. That would be the first one that we've seen at a road course for this season. So, I mean, it would definitely give some drivers an opportunity to make some more passes, gain some more positions, but ultimately, I don't think that anyone's really going to be able to make any big gains here. Now it's all going to come down to who's going to come down into pit road when, and from there it's battles for scraps at that point.
Oh yeah, it's really just a case of keeping the car underneath you, and especially in the case of Courcelle, just taking your time, realizing that while you may want to get up to Koulibaly and challenge for that position, it may do you more harm than good, burning up those tires and really trying to hit your marks as perfectly as you want to. As I say that, gets very close.
Oh boy.
Whoa. That is going to be Matthew Fitz, I believe.
Yeah, Matthew.
Yeah, just a bit of a lock up there as well. So there's a few drivers now we're seeing starting to struggle on these tires.
Whew. Big slide here from the 69, Matthew Fitz. Yeah, I think you're right, Gareth. I think these guys a lot of these drivers are starting to feel the effects of tire wear. Just with how many turns that we have here at COTA, I don't have an exact number. I think it's like 19 or something like that, something crazy. I know.
It's 20.
20. Okay.
Sorry, I got a track map up here, so that I'm looking at right now, and yes, 20 corners. Nice even number.
20 corners. I mean, yeah, with a lot of them being, well, let's see here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly hairpins. 5, actually. It seems like that that is not going to be too forgiving on the tires. It's going to definitely make things rather difficult for drivers very early on. And I mean, we're in Texas. Granted, it's virtual Texas. It's still going to be particularly hot out there on track. Now, Gareth, I know that you are going to be pretty well experienced with the hot lands, being yourself based in Australia, kind of close to Texas, kind of similar.
Yeah, well, in all honesty, I haven't actually been to Texas, so I couldn't tell you exactly, but I do know it gets hot down there, and obviously it gets hot here, so it's probably about right. Yeah, it's probably very similar. I can't imagine it's all that much different. I apologize if anyone could hear that, by the way. I have a fly buzzing around my head in the booth here at the moment, and I'm not all that happy about it. So I apologize to anyone who can potentially hear that, as it's...
You can just imagine Gareth just angrily swatting around his head while trying
just
to call
a little bit.
action.
Just a little bit, but it looks like we got hop on Sean Williams here, trying to hop, skip, and a jump his way through the field. So definitely a good performance out of Hop, as I said, after not deciding to grid up early on, and that might be what caused the telemetry issue you had earlier, where it said he was a lap down, even though he wasn't. And yeah, as we make a move here, under braking, very risky with these cars, and able to get it done. Nice move from the 81 machine. So Jaden Hop really showing that he has got something figured out under braking, especially in these very loose cars at the moment. Might have done a bit more, might be taking a line which saves the tires a little bit more than some of the other drivers. I'm not too sure about that one, but he is a little bit wider and going into that corner a little bit straighter than the rest of them. So that might have something to do with it. Interesting to note that this track, I don't know, Mason, if you or anyone in the spectator areas has seen the Grand Tour, but the driver Abby Eaton on that show, right there, that curb, you can see just as Sean passes it just there, and Hop just passed it as well. Abby hit that in 2021 during a race in the W Series of basically the women's Formula One series, and yeah, broke her back over that sausage curb. So just an interesting point to note that while this is deemed a fairly safe track, there are still bits and pieces out there that can really send you for a ride. And yeah, it's well, I guess that's just that's just something to think about, really, when we saw like Aaron Smith, for example, during qualifying, taking those curbs quite high and can really unsettle these cars and these drivers.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. Yeah, I saw a lot of the media circulating around that particular incident that you mentioned with the Formula W series. That was really, really tough to see. Definitely don't want to see drivers breaking their backs and potentially ruining their career because of, things on track that are meant to aid drivers in such things like that. So really tough to see that happen, and hopefully that driver is recovering well after that. I know it's probably been well over a year at this point. But Gareth, we have quite a few people in the chat giving us a shout out, giving us hellos. Don Hilbrands, as usual, great to see Don back out here every single week, cheering on Tony Hilbrands and the rest of VRL here in today's race. Marcus Regal joining us here as well. And guess who, Gareth?
Yeah, I had a brief chat with him last night. It is our good old friend Daniel Beauchamp. Yeah, I'm just gonna pretend like I said that right the first time. We'll just go with it. Hi, Daniel. Yeah, I told him I was gonna be doing a show, and I didn't tell him which one because I didn't want him to turn up and make me feel I didn't want to feel like the extra pressure of having to perform. But of course he's found me, so
Gareth,
there it is.
Gareth has been spotted by a wild Daniel. Daniel, it has been a while, buddy. It's definitely been a while since I've called the action for the Formula One series that unfortunately saw a very short-lived season. Sadly, it makes me sad, but great to see Daniel out here supporting Gareth as well as the rest of
the tribe.
Yeah, the tribe of Team Goon Squad is, the whole gang here. Beauchamp. You know what, Gareth? Don't feel too bad because I'm pretty sure I said his name wrong like half a dozen times or more.
I'm pretty sure I said it right the first time. I'm just gonna say that we've got it right and it's good.
It's good.
It's good. Yeah, as you can see, the drivers are quite spread out at the moment, so we're chilling out. We're having a bit of fun. It looks like Lovell is catching up to Jurek though for the 5th spot.
Yeah, Lovell starting to reel in Charles Jurek in the Daisy 76 machine, formerly the Fallout 76 machine, but I think Nicholas Lovell decided that having a game with a not so great reputation was not the best idea.
That's a very nice way of putting that, Mason. I think that's yeah. I know. I remember you mentioning that one of the first races I did with you, and yeah, we're gonna say. Well, we're not gonna say much. That's what we're gonna say.
They tried. They tried is the main point.
But yeah, we've got Jurek, Lovell, and Hop all pretty close together, and not too far behind Tony Hilbrands either.
Yeah, and what's interesting to note here as well, I mean, we're still a few laps away from pit stops, but even as, we still have those about 6 or 7 laps before we see anyone make that dive down into pit road to get a fresh set of good gears as well as fuel. It's interesting to see how close some of these drivers are starting to get to one another in kind of the later half of their stint. It's really interesting to see how the drop-off was kind of very, very obvious at the start of the race, and then now that we're 14 laps into the race, we're starting to see them kind of band back together here. And that may be because, some drivers, obviously we're seeing drivers get a little bit loose through these turns, the back ends of these cars not being too particularly happy with being sent into these right-hand turns, as well as left-handers at speed. So these cars definitely giving it all that they've got, but it is a handful for any of these drivers. And I want to take a moment here. Let's actually ride on board from the helmet camera of Nicholas Lovell and just kind of watch the RPM, the rev limiter, watch the steering wheel, and just kind of pay attention to how these guys work their way through a turn. Through turn 1 here, you heard Nicholas there drop 2 gears and made it sound easy too. I mean, this guy just, I don't know if he's got like a sequential next to him or what he's doing, but because I think technically you could get away with that. At least in the sim racing world. Big jumps off the curbs.
Those are those curbs that I was mentioning with Aaron Smith as well, during his qualifying, that they can really unsettle the car, but Lovell just obviously very calm and collected over them, so could be a definitely the fastest way to go, so could be an advantage heading in if the car stays settled on them, and if obviously he stays settled in the car itself as well, as they can be incredibly unnerving, those kinds of curbs. And you know, there's not many tracks out there with more vicious curbs than this one, as we see a car go way out the back. I believe that was William Britton going a lap down there.
Yeah, William's not having a good race here. Yeah, I think he has blown that engine.
Ooh.
Not looking good here for the Budweiser 64 machine. He limps it. Going to try and limp it back to pit road, it looks like. Trying to stay as high up on the track as he possibly can. They're grinding up. There it is. He brings it to a stop. I think he's decided enough's enough of that.
You know, speaking of like food and drinks and stuff like that we were talking about earlier, you know, I had one Budweiser. There was a restaurant that it's no longer around anymore, but there was a restaurant not too far away from my house where I used to live.
No way!
Oh, there's a full course yellow.
No way! All right, okay.
I did not expect that at all. As we have, yeah, that's Koulibaly.
Let's take a look at the
Wonder what happened to
replay.
him.
I'm a little bewildered here, Gareth. I did not expect to see a full course yellow come out, but let's see the reasoning for it as we watch James Koulibaly, the 22 Kodak machine. Big slide, and there it is right there. Because he stopped on the racing surface itself, the caution was brought out. And I mean, even though it was only for a few seconds there, I mean, that's enough reason. There's Nicholas Courcelle right there. I mean, that's enough reason for a racing official to bring out the flag, because I mean, that's a hazard. That is a potential wreck waiting to happen. And you know, seeing Nicholas Courcelle just coming into view there just a few seconds later, that shows you how little time that you have, you know, to get that car off the track. I mean, these cars are flying around, even though, again, that we were saying, you know, through the turns, drivers only going about 70, 80, 90 miles an hour. That's still pretty quick, folks.
Oh yeah, and he was stopped right on the apex, like almost perfectly on the apex of the corner. So it could have been quite the hazard to pass around once you saw it, of course. And yeah, so while I don't disagree with it, it has definitely thrown a spanner in the works, especially for Aaron Smith, who was leading this race by a considerable margin and is now going to have a whole bunch of drivers gridded up right behind him. I do think, though, that this comes at the perfect opportunity for people to get their cars refueled and put some new fresh rubber underneath them to make it all the way to the end. It'll be a little bit close, but I do believe that they'll be able to make it to the end, as their fuel is just about to sputter into the final straight. At the end of this race, I reckon that they will. I reckon that they'll pit is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Gareth. Based on what we're seeing right now, I mean, a lot of drivers just getting themselves stacked back up here in a line, getting ready to pace once again. But the leader's going right on by pit road here. So for Aaron Smith, James Miller, Howie Briss, and Tony Hilbrands, that's not who we have up here. Who do we have up here? We have the 69 of Matthew Fitz. We have the 09 of, that is Patrick Cole. Nope, that is not Patrick Coley. You know what, you two, you guys,
So
James
that's
Miller and
James
Patrick
Miller is
Colby.
the 09. There you go.
And
The
then
09 and the number 9.
yeah, and then we have Howie Briss as well, the 97 car up here in the top, well, the top 4 spots here on the track. But I don't know.
They're gonna.
Pit roads might not actually be open yet. I think they might be waiting for the safety car to come out, which there it is. So, folks, while we have a little bit of time here as drivers make their way around Circuit of the Americas, it's going to be a little bit of time here before we go back to green flag. And while that happens, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break up here in the booth. And when we come back, we will have more of the Lone Star 200 for the 2022 Velocity Racing League Cup Series. We'll be back shortly for more iRacing right here on Team Goon Squad. And welcome back, race fans, to the Lone Star 200. 21 laps left to go. We're pacing around at the moment with the safety car in tow for the first caution of the race here today, and the first time that we've seen a full course yellow for any of the road courses here with Velocity Racing League this season. So phenomenal to see a restart happening here today, and with 21 laps left to go, it's still a long race left here for these drivers, but as we are still awaiting to make our way through the final few turns here at COTA, and we're going to see if, I'm assuming, both Gareth and I are assuming everyone is going to make their way through pit lane. I really highly doubt anyone is going to be brazen enough to stay out on the same set of tires.
I can't see it happening. I mean, you've got a golden opportunity here to pit, and it just looks like from the way everyone's come off that corner. I mean, surely, but no, it looks like someone's staying out.
Yeah,
but
who is that? I think that might be.
Oh, is that Fitz? That's Matthew Fitz, yeah. Because he went he was a lap down, so.
So he's gonna try and get his lap back here as he makes his way around the safety car. So he's gonna make a mad dash around COTA here and try and get himself back up to the rest of the field as pit road looking a little busier. Drivers making their way through their pit boxes. Gonna get a fresh set of tires as well as fuel. Let's see who's gonna be the first one out. And Aaron Smith off to a good jump here. And look at James Miller, the 09 machine, just from out of nowhere, getting himself back up here into that second place spot. And with Howie Briss in third, Tony Hildebrand's in fourth, and Charles Jurek in fifth. I gotta say, James Miller, I'm surprised I'm surprised he didn't catch a speeding penalty for getting out of pit road.
He shot out of that box like out of a cannon. I mean, he was so quick. I don't know if there's some a bit of sketchy tactics going on, some nice rubber underneath that car as it took off rather than some pavement. I'm not sure, but yeah, that 09 machine just rocketed out of that pit stall and obviously got him the spot ahead of Howie Briss to start this one.
Yeah, and I mean, where he was in pit road too, I mean, his pit box was a few stalls down from Aaron Smith. I mean, Aaron Smith having the leading pit stall here. Now, granted, that doesn't always matter because there are other factors that come into how quickly you're able to get out of your pit box. But for James Miller to kind of be not necessarily midway, but kind of a little bit further back than he would probably like to be, able to get himself in and out that quickly, phenomenal for the 09 machine of James Miller. And the opportunity for these drivers going into this restart, now that they've all got a pretty good sense of the track now, being that, they've all done 15 laps, 14 laps under green flag, everyone having a good opportunity to get some battles in alongside drivers. I mean, I'm curious to see if anyone here is going to have some newfound confidence going into this restart to be able to take on Aaron Smith for this lead.
Well, if anyone's shown pace over definitely a long run, it has been James Miller. Howie Briss certainly has been showing pace as well over the shorter runs, though, so could be fairly interesting to see what's going to happen, as the pace lights are still on. So we're probably going to go around once more around all 20 corners. So a very long caution flag that we're going to have here at COTA. But I'd just like to bring back to the conversation I was just about to have earlier on, or I started having earlier on, before we went under caution, when it comes to William Britton and his Budweiser sponsor. I did have my first ever Budweiser at a restaurant that used to be around here called Smokey's. It was a nice, American restaurant, and it was really nice. Don't know why every nice restaurant I go to goes under, but whatever. And yeah, I had a Budweiser because I got sucked into advertising, because I think the year that I had it was Kevin Harvick was winning everything in his number 4 machine in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, and I got sucked into thinking, hey, his main sponsor's Budweiser, I'll have one. And boy, that was a mistake. It's, I mean, in my opinion, not the greatest of beers. Let's put it that way.
Well, Gareth, I mean, coming from me, I'm personally not much of a beer lover. It's not my thing. I've had all different varieties of beer, whether it's dark beers, brews, whatever the case is. I've tried at least one of all of them. And I don't know. I don't know what it is about beer specifically, but it's just not my forte. But you put a nice shot of Woodford Reserve or a nice bourbon in front of me. Hey, now we're talking. That's a different story. But
That's nice.
I don't know, man. Something about a nice shot of bourbon and a good steak. You can't beat that, man. You can't beat it.
Yeah, well,
sorry, we're talking about food again.
No, I mean, I just hope I'm not making you too hungry, but at the same time, I think it's really funny, so to make you hungry.
I can sit here and dream about a nice savory steak here, but as we're getting ourselves ready to go back to green.
Viewers hungry.
Oh God, yeah, I'm sure that everyone's probably just sitting there just salivating, just thinking about a juicy steak that they had or something. I'm sorry for that, folks. I hope that I'm not making you too hungry, but
I mean, you might be influencing someone's dinner choice here. There you go. There might have been a pit road speeding violation as Miller drops. Is it dropping to the back?
I don't know. He just stopped. dead stop here, and
Oh, there we go. So
it might have been a stop and go potentially. I don't know why he would
you
serve it in the
can't
middle of the track though.
you can't serve a stop and go
Yeah, I
in
was
the
gonna
middle of the
say like
track.
that wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that would have been a speeding on pit road penalty. There we go. I got it in the end. And yeah, I'm thinking that's why he's dropped to the back. But then again, he's moving back up the places, so now I'm even more confused.
He probably had to take a phone call. he's mid race right now, and someone's giving him a ring. And he's saying, "Hey guys, I gotta stop my car for a second. I gotta answer this." Either way, though, I mean, even despite all the confusion up here in the booth as to why James Miller had to bring that 09 car to a stop, he's back up here in the front, so no harm, no foul. Everything's fine and dandy. So we're gonna go back to green flag racing here in just a few turns. I don't exactly know where we are on the track right now, but I can assure you that this...
We're approaching turn 12.
Turn 12, perfect.
Yeah.
So with all of that, with all of tonight's race kind of digested here and getting ready for the next, what will be 18 laps of today's race. I mean, Gareth, Aaron Smith has clearly dominated today's race with just absolute dominance. I mean, he has worked his way up. I believe the last time I looked, it was like 5 seconds. It might have even been way more than that. But either way, you know, he has been unstoppable here at Circuit of the Americas. James Miller has shown a lot of good pace in his long run speeds. Howie Briss has been able to keep himself up here in the mix of the top 3, as well as Tony Hilbrand's Charles Jurek and Jaden Hopp, who's even starting to make a little bit of an appearance up here in the top order. So I don't know, Gareth. I think with these final few laps, things could get interesting here, especially that, again, turn 1. I mean, that is going to be a real edge of the seat moment, I think, for ourselves and I think for a lot of the viewers at home.
Well, it's interesting on that as well, because Aaron Smith is starting in the outside line heading into turn 1, and Miller's on the inside. Now, I'm sure Miller will be thinking, well, you know, Aaron Smith is obviously quite a fast driver here at the moment, so he might be sending it a little bit deeper than he probably wants to himself, just to keep Smith out of the first position as much as he can, which is interesting to see that Smith is on the outside line for this one. I'm not sure if that was by choice or just that was where he was assigned, but we see the pace car heading off as they head to the final 20th corner and back up to restart this one.
Aaron Smith, James Miller side by side. Tony Hilbrand's, Howie Briss, Charles Jurek, Jaden Hopp all round out the top 6 here as we get ready for the green flag to drop here once again for the Lone Star 200 at Circuit of the Americas. For the 2022 Velocity Racing League Cup Series, the action is back here at COTA. Aaron Smith again restarting up on the outside. James Miller with the dive to the inside. Oh man, I was almost half expecting, Gareth, that Aaron was going to try and possibly pinch James Miller out of that turn, but here he goes out of turn number 2. They're side by side. The action continues to brew. James Miller up in front ahead of Aaron Smith. Aaron Smith going to get set back here into second place right behind the bumper of the 09 machine. Gareth, and there's trouble right through the carousel.
Yeah, it's a big moment from James Coulibaly there, but it seems like it's all going to be settled out as we don't have a cautions breed cautions moment, which is probably for the best at seeing how long the last caution was. Coulibaly will get it underneath him and get back up, I'm sure, in no time, as we've got a dive coming in. That's going to be Howie Briss, it looked a lot more dramatic than it probably actually was from the camera angle that we were seeing. But James Miller still holding off Aaron Smith up in the top spot, and that's quite an impressive feat considering what we've seen already. So, and I think that's why Aaron went a little bit wide and didn't want to pinch Miller down, because he just wanted to stay away from everything. He probably knows he's got the pace underneath him, as we saw Hilbrands take a little bit of a nicer line, in my opinion, than Howie Brish just in front of him. And this is making me go to the edge of my seat, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I gotta say, you know, with this restart, it's definitely giving these drivers another opportunity to fight for position. I mean, look at this stack of drivers coming out of, I believe that's turn, I think, 15, 16?
That's 16. Yeah.
I still remember some of them, but it's definitely been a little while. But yeah, with James Miller now leading this field, this has definitely thrown a wrench in the gears for Aaron Smith, who, again, has dominated a lot of this race today, pretty much the first half of this race, now having to fight his way back into the lead. This might potentially be troublesome for Aaron Smith. I mean, if James Miller continues to turn laps as well as he has been, you know, for the past 18, 15 laps, however many it was before we took that caution, I mean, it could very well be a James Miller race here, as, you know, it's shown that making passes here at Circuit of the Americas in these cars is not easy, Gareth.
Oh, not at all, because I believe in this sort of track, most of the passing opportunities you have are into quite heavy braking zones, and with, as I know we've talked about before, with the small brakes and the heavy cars that these are, it's quite difficult to decide just how much brake pressure to put on there before the wheels lock up, as Aaron Smith is going to look, no, he's not going to look to the inside. He's going to try and use that draft on the long straightaway from turn 11 to turn 12 and make his way by, I'm sure, on the heavy braking zone into turn 12. But we've seen, it's been interesting, because at the top of the show, you said to me, you know, you were asking me basically, do we think anyone will be able to challenge Aaron Smith? And we're seeing it here right now.
Yeah, James Miller, you know, after a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not we would see, you know, a true challenger to the road course aficionado, Aaron Smith, you know, and it's really good to see someone giving Aaron Smith a really, really good run for his money here, especially at a track as technical as Circuit of the Americas. I mean, with all of the elevation changes, all of the turns and hairpins that we have here, this is a very, very good challenge for these drivers. I would almost say even akin or similar to that of Sebring, the second race of the season that we saw here for the VRL Cup Series. You know, that was a very, very good race to watch, and, you know, probably, I would say same level of difficulty and, you know, technicality as Circuit of the Americas here.
Oh yeah, it's just we see. Just sorry, Mason. It's just Smith is peaking quite a few times. Really, just I think he's just feeling Miller out. He's not entirely sure where he wants to make the move, and just trying to see where James is maybe making a little bit more of a bobble, and trying to choose his moment to overtake. But as you said earlier, it's very tough to pass, especially when you have got that thing dialed in and you can just stick to the racing line the whole time. It's very difficult to pass, and Smith, I can imagine, is not too happy about seeing the rear of another car in front of him at the moment.
Yeah, no, I'm almost certain that Aaron Smith is maybe even a little frustrated at this point in time, you know, knowing that trying to make a pass here is going to prove to be, I don't want to say impossible, but it's going to be extremely difficult. And we can even kind of see here Aaron Smith adapting his lines a little bit here. He seems to be taking them a little bit wider, you know, to be able to push his nose into the inside of James Miller on the exit. it seems to be helping, but I gotta wonder here, Gareth, how much is that going to be eating up his tires here? And look at that. That's a great example of what I mean.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of what you mean, because he's really trying to get as much exit speed as he can. As you can see, he's using every single inch of this racetrack, trying to really get a good launch off the corner, and that might be the go, but we are heading into right-handers, so might not be able to keep that car. Yeah, no, dude, it was an interesting challenge, but sadly not the best of ones, granted where they are on the track, as Aaron Smith is really, really trying to get around Miller here, and Miller not wanting that to happen, of course. So Smith gets a beautiful corner and gonna make that pass, I think, into T1.
Yeah, side by side, he's on the inside of James Miller heading into turn one, the hairpin left-hander. And I think Aaron Smith has set himself up for success for the pass into the lead. And there he does with a little bit of a hop over the curb there. And James Miller taking advantage of that moment of Aaron Smith getting up into the air for just a moment. And that little bit of time of Aaron Smith only being on two wheels was enough for James Miller to get back into the front. But Aaron Smith showing that he knows what to do to be able to make the pass into the lead. He's going to continue to put the pressure on James Miller here. And you know what? I want to ride on the back here of James Miller and just look at this. He's just an angry bee. That was a beautiful textbook move, as they're going to go side by side, and Aaron is really going to check up Britton there, and Britton will see if Britton can fire. Not Britton. Why am I saying Britton? Miller. We'll see if Miller can really fire back here. I know I was saying Britton because I was going to say that William Britton has retired from this race and is out at the moment, and I believe so is Nicholas Corsell. They are done and out, and Howie Dietrich and Tom Mercier have decided that they do not fancy their chances, or are not. Yeah, well, they've decided to just call it quits, I think, at the moment. That's why. That's what's happening here. But anyway, as we've got Smith and Miller still fighting it out, but I think Smith is might just be running away with it. Miller will try not to let him run too far, but yeah, definitely look like it, as Hop is continuing to really surprise and impress me. Jaden Hop on the back of Tony Hilbrands here, really ramping up the battle for fourth position. Yeah, the top four, well, really the top five positions, all getting heated up here in the final 15 laps of the Lone Star 200. And Gareth, I mean, one other thing that I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see here again, how before the first caution, we saw this kind of spreading happen on the field where drivers were kind of all in their own little groove. This time around, it seems that's kind of flip-flopped, where we're seeing drivers stay closer to one another in the earlier stage of this stint. Now I'm wondering if we're going to see kind of the reverse of what we saw in the first half of the race, where drivers got spread out earlier in their stint and then stacked back, or got closer to one another in the later half of that stint. I'm wondering if that's going to be the opposite here for the remainder of this race with 14 laps left to go. I mean, it doesn't seem like anyone or a lot of these drivers are getting too far off of the pace that we saw before that caution. So, to kind of see Briss, Hilbrands, and Hop all in this line here, fighting for what is third place at this moment. Hilbrands trying to get himself a podium here at Circuit of the Americas, and probably a podium for his first road course of the season. So that would be a good feeling for the 92 machine. Howie Briss continuing to fight for his season championship lead. I mean, Howie's just looking for consistency, and I think he's going to pull that off here today. Aaron Smith going to look to bring himself to, I think, wow, okay, so I thought Aaron Smith already broke double-digit wins, but he hasn't So I think tonight might be the day he does that here at Circuit of the Americas. So, I mean, Gareth, we've got a lot of kind of different things happening out on track as far as, points battles for the championship and even just, stats in general, if you will.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things are going to happen throughout this race, and even towards the end of it, with standings being as close as they are, as you see Briss, Hilbrand's, Hop, and to a lesser extent Lovell in 9th. They're all, in the and Williams in 7th as well. They're the top 5 in our championship, not in that order, but they are our top 5 championship contenders. So it'll be very close. And as you said, with Smith getting his, well, if he wins, because Miller is still up there trying to give Smith every run for his money. But Smith looking for his 10th win, and yeah, there's quite a few different stats being broken and thrown around in this one. And well, definitely there's another stat, the first full course yellow on a road course that we've seen all season long.
Yeah, that definitely threw me off, to say the least. Going into the road courses with VRL for the Cup Series, I almost always, I shouldn't even say this, but I almost always expect a green flag race, because typically in the past that's what we've seen. We've seen a green flag run all the way until the end, and maybe I am wrong. Maybe we have seen a caution before on a road course. It might just be a little in the past for me to remember, but either way, I mean, to see a full course yellow come out and see the field be able to get restacked for another restart, I mean, that's huge. That's huge for these drivers, to be able to get that opportunity to fight for positions. Because again, when you get into those super long green flag runs, I mean, even if it's at an oval, it can get extremely taxing as a driver to try and make any positions, or even just chip away at the gap between yourself and the driver ahead of you. And at road courses, I think it's just exemplified it's just amplified even more, given that based on the technicality of the track, it can be difficult, to say the least. But I mean, here today, it's been a good race. Everyone has shown very, very good skill here. I mean, few drivers getting themselves in a couple tricky situations here and there, but overall, I think a lot of this field, I mean, even despite all of maybe some of the uncertainty with drivers, coming into a road course and thinking to themselves, hey, this is probably going to be a crap show. I'm not going to do very well, but I'm just going to wing it and hope for the best. And sometimes, they find themselves doing a little bit better than they might have expected. Not always the case, but I don't know. It's a unique thing to see for this series in particular, with a 36 race schedule, having just a couple road courses sprinkled in there every now and then definitely makes the season a lot more challenging for those that are looking to come away, with championships, or even just fighting for championships. Some drivers don't necessarily care for that, and that's totally fine. Not everyone has to compete for a championship. That's, some drivers just want to compete. They just want to race. They want to have fun. That's totally all right. But yeah, with the numbers that we see here for these road course races compared to what we see at the ovals, not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, not everyone is as confident with these cars on road courses. It's not easy, folks. I can't stress that enough. It's definitely one of the most challenging things that these drivers will do. And, like I alluded to before, Sebring and here at Circuit of the Americas, these are probably the most technical tracks on the schedule, and they are definitely not easy and shouldn't be thought of lightly.
Yeah, I'm a bit sorry I missed Sebring, because that sounds like it would have been one crazy blast.
It was wild.
Yeah, with all the pavement bumps and all the craziness that is involved in that circuit, I'm sure that would have been very interesting for driver and spectator alike. heading into that one. But we're focusing still on this 3-car battle between Briss, Hilbrands, and Hop, and they're putting on a show, that's for sure. While we've been talking, this battle is not dissipated at all. And Nicholas Lovell is also making his way up to Sean Williams back in 7th position as well. So there's a few battles coming in later into this run with just over 10 laps to go. So this could go down to the wire for a podium position, as well as some other battles out on track as well.
Yeah, the top three, Howie Briss, I mean, he still has Tony Hilbrands and Jaden Hopp right in his rear view. I mean, excuse me, it's not going to be easy for either Hilbrands or Hopp to make a pass here, but Jaden Hopp is, he's kind of taken some similar lines to what we saw Aaron Smith doing with James Miller, trying to close in on the bumper to James Miller. Just kind of taking those wider approaches to the turns, able to get a bit more speed out of the exits. And I mean, here it's showing through the S's here at Coda. I mean, he definitely has a lot of good control of that 81 car, as trying to reel himself in to not only Hilbrands but Howie Briss. Man, look at this, Hilbrands starting to get right up on the tail of Briss. I mean, Briss has got to just feel all sorts of pressure right now, having not just one but 2 cars trailing him for that 3rd place spot.
Oh, and being two of his championship contenders as well, I'm sure it's weighing on his mind quite heavily. But yeah, it's definitely going to be tough. I mean, Howie Briss, though, we have seen in the past that certainly no stranger to rocking up and just having a good finish, just getting it done through consistency alone. So, as I say that...
No!
Not
Sorry.
sure if a lock up of the brakes or if that was just a miscue on just where to time it, or maybe a bit of scare tactics by Hilbrands there at the back. But the pressure seeming all too much, and Hilbrands able to make that position change hands as Briss tries to get recuperated and luckily retains the spot over Jaden Hopp just behind. So this 3-car battle, I'm sure, is not over with anytime soon.
No, with 11 laps left to go, it's still a lengthy race. Not as long as what we had at the start, but definitely still quite a bit of time left before we see the white and checkered flag fly here at Circuit of the Americas. But 10 laps left as Aaron Smith has crossed the line just a little bit, just a few seconds ago. But now as these 3 drivers make their way down the front straight, the final straight, across the checkered line and heading back into turn number 1, and Tony Hilbrands up into that 3rd place spot, and Howie Briss now just kind of settled back into 4th at this moment, not really showing that he's going to make any attempt at passing Hilbrands here, and it might even possibly be that Briss here is potentially expecting Hilbrands to make a mistake here and be able to make that pass up ahead of Hilbrands. But at this moment, with 10 laps left to go, everything is still calm, everything is still steady as drivers continue on with the action here, as it appears that we're having a little bit of technical issues up here in the broadcast booth. Hopefully we still sound clear to everyone watching, as it appears our internet is starting to catch up with things and make sure that we provide the best coverage possible, as we have a little bit of contact between Briss and Hilbrands.
Yeah, Briss made that spot back up, and yeah, sorry there.
Go ahead, continue on.
Yeah, battle for 3rd, but Howie Briss just went for the dive, and Hilbrands chose to cross over, and I don't think he expected Briss to still be there. So just a little bit of a lift to the rear of Briss, but thankfully backed it down. No harm, no foul to either driver. And I'm keen to know from your perspective, Mason, would you rather be in the first of these cars, in the middle or right behind is probably where I would want to be. Jaden Hopp, just seeing how everything kind of files out, but at the same time, not being right up with the other two at the front can sometimes slow you down, and before you know it, you've lost where they are in front of you. So I'm keen to know your perspective on which of these three positions would you rather be in?
Well, Gareth, I think a lot of other people that sim race can agree with me, or even race in real life can agree with me. I much prefer to chase than be chased. You know, it's definitely something that takes time. You definitely aren't just instantly good at being chased. When you have drivers in your mirrors, you have drivers on your left, on your right, just constantly giving you pressure. It definitely wears on your mind. It definitely you can't. It's not something that you can easily shut out and just ignore. Some drivers are able to, and kudos to them, because it can be really taxing sometimes. But going back to your question, Gareth, I think if it was me in this battle right here, I would want to be where Tony Hilbrandt's is. And the only reason is because I can kind of gauge the pace of not only Howie Briss, but as well as Jaden Hopp. If I can see that Howie Briss is starting to get ahead of me and Jaden Hopp is starting to catch up on me, that tells me I'm going too slow. I'm taking these turns too slow. I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong in my lines and improve it. If, like, for example, you mentioned that you would be in Jaden Hopp's position or would prefer to be in that spot, I feel like in that situation, like you alluded to, once you start to see that driver ahead of you start to slip away, it can get pretty difficult to start to catch back up again. And it almost can get to a point sometimes where if you let them get too far, it can almost seem impossible to catch back up. That pace is just sometimes not the easiest thing to get back, especially as, you can try and mimic the line of another driver as much as you want. But trying to get their braking points and, figuring out when they're going through the gears and so on and so forth, trying to be basically a one-to-one copy of what they're doing, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. You're going to do things your own way. You're going to have a certain way of doing things and, getting on the brakes, so on and so forth. Every driver has their own little niche style, if you will, of driving these cars. Not everyone is exactly the same. The cars are the same, but the way they're driven is not. But anyway, Gareth, with all that jabbering away, I think ultimately, being in the middle would probably be where I would want to stay at. Just purely because, again, you'd be able to see how fast you're going compared to the driver ahead of you and behind you.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's just it's just interesting to hear other people's thoughts and opinions on racing and stuff like that. Like we saw just recently there towards the end of last lap that Hop was getting a little bit out of shape, and I almost wonder if that's because he was following too closely and maybe getting a little bit complacent with just staying behind them and going, oh yeah, I'll let these two sort it out, and only just seeming to realize that the gap between Hilbrandts and Briss is not as close as it used to be. So Hop now starting to put a little bit more pressure on Hilbrandts as well, as they head up the hill down the long straightaway into turn 12. This is where we saw Howie Briss make that mistake and brake not at the right point last time. As you can see, braking very heavy. Howie Briss making sure to hit his marks properly, but in doing so slowed the car down a little bit too much, and that allowed Hilbrandts to almost collect. Hilbrandts very struggling to keep that car underneath him as Jaden Hopp just looks on from this battle in front of him once again.
Yeah,
I mean, this 3-car battle just doesn't stop.
No, it's definitely not letting up here. at all, it seems like, with only 8 laps left to go. It'll be 7 here in just a few moments once, there it is, as Aaron Smith crosses the checkered line. So, I mean, laps are quickly dwindling down here, and I say quickly even though lap times are about 2 minutes and we'll say 20 seconds roughly is the average that we're seeing here at this moment. But I gotta say, you know, for what we've seen at the beginning of this race compared to what we're seeing right now with this battle for what is essentially now going to be 4th place, as Howie Briss is starting to slowly get a little bit of distance between himself and these 2 drivers. I mean, they're both kind of scrapping for position here, but only barely. I mean, essentially Jaden Hopp is just traveling behind Tony Hilbrand's, just trying to make sure that he doesn't get too far away and try and close that gap between himself and Hilbrand's there. But I mean, for Howie Briss, with 7 laps left to go, it's still a long time, but Briss has got to be feeling pretty confident now that he's been able to get himself around Tony Hilbrand's for that 3rd place spot after they duked it out there for that position change a little bit earlier. But now that they have kind of got away from all of that, and Hilbrand's and Hopp now going to duke it out side by side. Hopp looking to put his way up into 4th place here. Oh boy, little bit of a wobble and wag from the 81 DeWalt machine, just barely able to keep it up ahead of Tony Hilbrand's, the Phenom paint shop machine. Going to get himself stacked up to the rear end of the 81 car, as we have just about 6 laps left to go here for the Lone Star 200.
Yeah, that was a great move by Jaden Hopp. I think he has decided that it's time to go, and I think he was just feeling out Howie Briss, and Tony Hilbrand's just wondering where he might be better, and used the same sort of move that we saw earlier with Aaron Smith made on James Miller for the lead. Is that small, like, uphill couple of corners, like from transitioning from the right side to the left side. It's a very tricky section of track, and as you can see, if you can get it right, it's pretty major in terms of the speed difference there. So yeah, and you can see Howie Briss has made his way further up ahead. So obviously Hopp has decided that he needs to get his mind in it and put his foot to the floor if he's going to take away a podium spot from Howie Briss in this race today.
Yeah, I think right now Jaden Hopp knows that time is ticking away, and he only has so much time left to work with before we see that checkered flag. And I mean, he is definitely trying all that he can here to get up to the 97 of Howie Briss. And based on timing and scoring right now, the 97 does show a faster pace at this moment, but only just by a little bit. It's, I think it could be very easily taken away from Howie Briss, in just the matter of a few short seconds if any mistake is made from that 97 car, which, to the credit of all the drivers here today, everyone has done a phenomenal job of keeping these cars in a straight line on track here today, despite all of the the wobbles that we've seen from various drivers here today. I don't think there's been a single driver that hasn't seen that or hasn't felt that rear end start to, well, ultimately slide away from them there a little bit, as Jaden Hopp having a little bit of a blinky poo. But
What? You want to run that by me one more time?
A blinky poo. I thought you'd like that, Gareth.
Oh, Mason, what do we do with you?
Sometimes I wonder that myself. Oh boy, as this has been a good race here, Gareth. I mean, sometimes you gotta bring out the humor a little bit, and just have a little fun with it.
Oh man, that actually brought like a tear to my eye now. Okay.
You'll
That was so unexpected.
you'll never be able to see that happen again without hearing that word.
Oh no, I know, and that's gonna haunt me now. Oh, I'm gonna see that on track and just oh, and I've just dropped all my notes. Ah, jeez. All right. Well.
While
Anyway.
Gareth has a little bit of cleanup duty there in the booth. It's 5 laps left to go here at Circuit of the Americas, folks. It's been incredible racing. Seeing the first caution come out, getting the field restacked and racked for another restart. It's definitely been a monumental night here. Even despite not having a whole lot of side-by-side racing that we, typically can see on the ovals, but all of these drivers showing their ability behind the wheel. And I gotta say, folks, it is impressive to see just how talented this field truly is. I mean, I know I've said it a lot throughout this broadcast, but I can't stress it enough just how challenging it is to take these cars around this track. I mean, this car and track combination, like Tommy Valenzuela mentioned in the broadcast chat, looks like a very fun combination. I will say it is an interesting combination, and I mean, depending on the driver that you talk to here tonight, might have some varying opinions of the definition of fun, but either way, everyone's showing that they definitely have the skills and the talent to be able to rip some laps here at Circuit of the Americas under racing conditions. And I gotta say, for Aaron Smith, not exactly too surprising to see the road course aficionado just dominating this race here today, but to see James Miller, another driver who we typically don't get to see, well, I don't want to say typically don't get to see, but we've got to see in some road course races. I'd actually have to go back and double check here, but actually, you know what? Let me see if I can do that here real fast for us. James Miller here. I know that he has seen some fairly good success in some of the road courses here. So Watkins Glen. Oh, I lost my train of thought here. James Miller came home with second place here for the Watkins Glen race, and then for Virginia, didn't have quite the same success there. Road America, also not as quite of a good finish there for him. Road Atlanta, he came home with 9th place. So in Sebring, he came home with 2nd. So, for James Miller, coming home with 2nd for Sebring and coming here into Circuit of the Americas and finding himself in 2nd place again, both extremely technical tracks here, as Matthew Fitz, a little bit of lap traffic for the 09 car, able to work through that relatively smooth. But, I mean, yeah, Gareth, James Miller here, he is not all that ill-familiar with road courses, and, I mean, he definitely has what it takes. He just hasn't had a lot of great success in some of the road courses that we've been to, but here today, it's a different story.
Yeah, well, it might have been the practice that may have been more practice put in on James Miller's part coming into this race. And while you were talking, I didn't want to interrupt you there, Mason, but we saw Jaden Hopp do a bit of a lockup, bit of a bobble heading into turn 1, which allowed Howie Briss to really open up that gap, and meant that Jaden Hopp potentially might struggle to catch back up, to have another fire at Howie Briss for the last podium spot here, as it really looked like there was quite a big moment out of Jaden Hopp's machine towards the end of that one. But to your point, as you were saying earlier, James Miller definitely has had some great performance on the road, as you said, like a second at Watkins Glen. Like there's definitely been some great performance out of James Miller's 09 machine, and it might have just been unlucky or had a few races where he wasn't quite as efficient or as in the groove, as they say. over the course of a run, as he has been this race and at Watkins Glen. But really, I mean, it's been pretty incredible to see Miller really challenge Aaron Smith for that lead for quite a few laps there. Obviously, Aaron Smith making his way out to the front and leading this one fairly sizably at the moment. So the yellow banana still up in front and leading this one with 3 laps to go.
The lean, mean yellow banana, Aaron Smith, now being dubbed. Well, you know, now that I've said that, you know, a few times, it's fitting. He's just a lean, mean yellow banana. That's, you know, this is what this is what it reminds me of. But either way,
well, Dawn told us, you know, we should call him the mellow yellow machine, which sounds a lot better. But
yeah,
I mean, ever since you said banana, that's just in my head now.
Oh gosh, unintentional, but it definitely has stuck here for Aaron Smith. So unfortunately, whether he likes it or not, he is now known as the lean, mean yellow banana. And after today, with only 3 laps left to go, and potentially bringing home double-digit wins here for the 70 machine, I think he has earned his nickname in that regard. So sorry, Aaron Smith, but it is the way it is.
You are now a banana.
I mean, hey, at least in my defense, you know, humans share, what is it, like 50% of the DNA similarities with bananas or something like that?
What?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I haven't heard that. That sounds so weird.
I don't remember what it is exactly, but it's something about the DNA of a banana and a human. They're pretty similar in some ways. I don't have actual facts to provide to anyone. This is all just me babbling information that I've may or may not have heard. But that, from what I understand, yes, humans actually share a little bit of information with bananas, surprisingly not.
Well, I found out not too long ago, bananas are actually a spice. Technically, they're not a fruit, they're a spice, because of it's something to do with like the bush that they grow on is more akin to like spices that you find growing rather than a fruit tree or a vegetable, which I think is really interesting, which I didn't know either. But yeah, it's pretty incredible as we go back to Hop, because Hop has been churning off some quite quick lap times, really, in his desperate attempt to catch back up to Howie Briss in front. And it's really looking quite good at the moment, really. I mean, Howie Briss last time by was slower by a couple of tenths, so yeah, could be something for Howie Briss. As you can see there, Jaden Hop is really pushing this car. So
yeah, the DeWalt 70 or 81 machine, excuse me, starting to show a little bit of life here in the final couple laps here at Circuit of the Americas, as Aaron Smith is about 3/4 of the way of making it past the checkered line and bringing us the white flag here for the Lone Star 200. And Don Hilbrands, this conversation is really going wildly out there.
Well,
yep.
I mean, if you want to know about bananas, we're the people to ask. You know, interesting thing about bananas as well, apparently, just because we're talking about it as well, apparently if you have like 2 a day for 20 years or so, it increases your risk of cancer, because apparently they're pretty high in radiation or something like that. I don't know, that one might be a bit of a speculation as well. Obviously not a good thing.
Are these bananas grown in Chernobyl?
No, they're just regular bananas. I'm sure those ones are probably pretty high. If anything can grow in Chernobyl at the moment. Man, I want to go there. Anyway, as we've got a final lap battle shaping up for the 3rd position, Howie Briss is still trying to hold on to that 3rd position. Jaden Hop is throwing everything out there trying to catch back up, and looks like he might actually have a dive position available as we head into the final lap here.
I am curious to say the least. And, you know, Jaden Hopp here, again, having shown, I mean, a lot of similarities to the lines that we've seen Aaron Smith taking here. And, I mean, Jaden Hopp he's shown in the past, in previous road course races, that he's also got the same skill sets, you know, of Aaron, as far as road courses are concerned. I mean, he definitely knows how to handle these turns. He knows how to put himself in good position, set himself up for the next turn, so on and so forth. Definitely among some of the best here as far as road courses go. But, I mean, final lap here of the race, he's got Howie Briss ahead of him at this moment. This is really the point where he can show he's got what it takes to come home with a podium here at Circuit of the Americas, as again he's trying to make that dive to the inside, trying to get his nose onto the inside of Howie Briss, trying to get himself set up for the next turn. And it just seems like Howie is able to get enough speed out of the exit to keep himself just far enough into that third place spot, as Aaron Smith getting ready to make his way through the final few turns as he comes out of, I believe that's turn 16. Only 4 turns left, and he will come home with the win here tonight at Circuit of the Americas for the Lone Star 200 and bring home double-digit wins for the 70 car.
Yeah, interesting that he did that little bobble there. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, because it didn't look like the proper way to go around the circuit, but he's got a lot of breathing room behind him, so Aaron Smith is going to take this win quite comfortably. Give a nice cheers and to the fans at home and to his pit crew, as James Miller is going to bring it home in second. And I'm keen to see how this battle is shaping up, as Jaden Hopp is looking very, very close to Howie Briss at the moment. Heading into the final corner. Oh, Jaden Hopp just goes a little bit wide and just can't lock it down, and tried the over-under and it wasn't going to work. And Howie Briss holds on to third position.
Yeah,
so,
and you know Jaden Hopp, he gave it everything he got to in those final few turns there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Jaden Hopp was flying through the circuit that last lap, really trying to put the pressure on as much as he can. And Howie Briss, the cool, calm, collected driver that he is, just kept it underneath him. And we've got a spin. That's Nicholas Lovell.
Yeah, just
not
before.
On the final lap.
Yeah, I think this is turn, I want to say 17, potentially. He's not too far away from the checkered line here, having a little bit of a moment before coming across the checkered line, but able to get that car back into a straight line, and he's luckily, oh boy.
Whoa.
Oh boy. Little.
Those tires still hot from that spin, and yeah, just wanting to spin that car around from underneath him. So, but you know what? He's finished. He's done.
I think
Aaron Smith is
looking
like he's trying to do some 11s or something.
I think he's trying to burn it down here. I don't know what he's doing. He's trying to Tokyo drift it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the smoke isn't doing much for him, but in terms of the positioning of his car, it looks like he's done a fantastic job, really, to celebrate his win. Yeah, there's some nice angles. Look
Good
at
drifts.
that. There's some smoke.
There we go. Oh, sent it a little too hard there. Love to see it. Aaron Smith doing some celebratory drifts here at Circuit of the Americas, as we're going to go ahead and get ready for our post-race interviews and get ourselves ready to talk to our first driver up here in the booth. That'll be Howie Briss, after I get ourselves ready for that here in just a moment. Bear with me here, folks. But Gareth, I mean, this has been a fantastic race to witness. 36 laps here at Circuit of the Americas. Only one caution brought out here, and seen a lot of challenges, for various positions throughout the field here, and really just great to see all of the action that we had here tonight. But Gareth, let's go ahead and start off with our first driver up here in the booth. That'll be Howie Briss, our championship leader, coming home with third here tonight at COTA. Howie, welcome to the booth. Congratulations on your third place finish, able to secure a podium and give yourself a little bit more of a boost into that lead for the championship. I mean, it definitely seems at this point in time, Howie, that you're going to come home with that trophy almost no matter what. But here tonight, the racing was definitely tough for a lot of drivers, and we've seen a lot of action throughout the field. Now, for yourself, and I think for a lot of other drivers that attended tonight's race, definitely probably weren't going to see anyone challenge Aaron Smith for that lead, just given the pace that he has here. It just seemed like it was almost impossible here. But for yourself, able to keep yourself up in the top three, but you had Jaden Hopp as well as Tony Hilbrands giving you quite the run there in the final half of the race. I mean, this is not an easy track, especially with all of the elevation change that we have here. Blind turns, especially turn number 1. I mean, walk me through some of the challenges that you faced here tonight, and do you think that you overcame a lot of them here tonight?
Yeah, I think I definitely did. I am about ready just to collapse, but yeah, they updated the track right before we raced here, so that kind of removed some of the grip, and it really didn't help on the rear tires because you're just trying to spin them to get going, and yeah, that just didn't help, and then didn't help with the caution either. So, but yeah, Jaden and Tony gave me a run for my money, and we were able to pick up third. Tony, however, he got by me, and then I got back by him, and then he just fell off the cliff. So, and then Jaden, right towards that final corner, I knew it had to be there because I knew I was kind of racing him to keep my gap. It's him and Lovell that I got to keep my gap with in the points. So, but yeah, this track was difficult, I will say. I kind of had a rhythm in the first half of the race right before the caution came out, but just kind of wasn't able to get back to where I was in the first half during that second run. But all in all, kind of a good race, but I just can't get any grip through the S's.
It definitely seemed like a lot of drivers were kind of suffering the same issue as yourself. I mean, we were seeing a lot of drivers up here in the booth that were just struggling to keep that rear end, from getting away from them and trying to keep these cars in a straight line, particularly just trying to get into the turns, slowing down, definitely seemed to be a tricky task, to say the least. I definitely think I saw a lot of drivers a little bit more, I don't want to say hesitant, but taking a little bit more easy going through these turns, not trying to be too aggressive, not wanting to get that car loose. But now that you have Circuit of the Americas out of the way here, Howie, and looking forward into the rest of the season, the next race that we head to is the Phenom Paint Shop 250 at Rockingham, which is a crown jewel race, which I do believe you will potentially be one of those drivers competing for that crown jewel. But either way, heading to Rockingham, how are you feeling about Rockingham, and what are kind of your goals for that race next week?
Survive. Just survive. But yeah, Rockingham's treated me nice in the past. Hopefully I can just do the same thing there. I mean, I probably won't walk away with the crown jewel, whatever it's called, thing, because I don't know. I do good there. I do kind of mediocre. I kind of run kind of where I always am. So, but if something were to happen, hey, maybe I'll get up there. I mean, it has been kind to me in the past, but hopefully I can just check it off the list and move on to the next race.
Absolutely. Love to hear it. Well, Howie, I want to congratulate you once again on taking a podium here tonight, third place for the Lone Star 200. And before we let you go, celebrate your finish here tonight. Is there anyone watching the broadcast, anyone at home in the pit crew that you want to shout out and thank before you go?
Oh, gosh. All right. Now you got me in the spotlight. Grandmother, Granddad upstairs. They're watching the race. They're actually upstairs. Okay, people. I had a couple people ask me about that last time. What was it? The 6ST team. They got a win yesterday down in Watertown. Congratulations, Joe, there for getting that win. Who else am I missing? Katie. I know she's watching. Aunt Stephanie, Mom, Papa, back home. Did I miss anybody else? I hope I didn't, because that race just wore me out. I think I'm gonna go collapse on the couch for a while.
Definitely worthy of taking a little bit of a breather and a nap, or maybe just go to sleep for a little while potentially. But Howie,
I think I need to go to Dairy Queen. Go get some ice cream.
hey, you know what? That's a good reward for third place. Ice cream? Hey, that's a great idea.
Yeah, go get myself a Blizzard.
Sounds good. Howie Brisk gonna go celebrate with a blizzard out of the booth here tonight. Thank you for joining us up here, Howie, and look forward to seeing you next week at Rockingham.
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys there.
Absolutely. Have a great night.
Hey, you too, man.
Alrighty, folks, that was Howie Briss out of the booth, taking home a third place here tonight. Up next, James Miller, the 09 machine, the driver who potentially we thought was going to give Aaron Smith a little bit of a run for his money here tonight for the race here at Circuit of the Americas. But I'm going to pass it off to Gareth here and let him interrogate our second place finisher here, James Miller.
Well, interrogation's a bit strong, Mason, but all right. James, you got a copy up here in the booth?
Yeah, I'm ready for my interrogation.
Well, sounds good, man. How do you feel that race went from your perspective? We saw you get very, very close and even had a run at Aaron Smith for that top spot for quite a while. Was it just tire fallout that got you in the end, or did he just find something on the track that you just couldn't?
Basically both. I mean, he had way more speed than I had coming into it, and I just got lucky that we had that caution just to bring me closer to him, just so I could push a little harder at the start. But Coda's not really my best road course track, and I didn't care for the setup. Wasn't my driving style. So I'm honestly surprised of where I finished, because I thought I would loop it for sure some point throughout there. It was just a little too rear free for me.
Well, yeah, we've heard that comment from quite a few of the drivers. I reckon would have the same sort of opinion as you, and we were speaking to Howie Briss just before about how the rear end was really trying to step away from you. Do you think that got worse as the tire wear kept on increasing, or was it just bad from the get-go? Was it just a whole lot of struggle?
Yeah, I mean, it was starting. You could start to feel it at the start of the run when the tires wore out, but as soon as you spun them just a little bit, increase that heat buildup, then they were just toast, and you would just keep sliding them until you had to really back off to cool them down, which has always been the thing. I just don't think it'd been quite that bad this season. Personally, too, I felt like the front end was a little. I don't know how to really explain it. It was just, I didn't really feel the front end. Personally, I would have liked a bit more turn. I think it was a bit tight in a weird way. It was kind of, I had to really push the car into the corner and give it a lot of throttle to do what I wanted, and that's what was kicking out the rear for me. But I mean, that's just my driving style. This is what you get for running in a fixed league. So just had to deal with it and keep going. But yeah, I mean, running behind Aaron, I'm not even sure what his line was different to mine. But when I was right behind him, I was running like 2 seconds faster. And then when I lost him, I went back to my original pace. So I wish I knew what he was doing differently and then how to keep doing it. But it was a blast.
Oh, we might have to get the post-race stewards to have a look and clear Aaron Smith's car. I reckon might be some illegal stuff going on in there to give him that extra pace. But nah, Aaron Smith and you had a fantastic battle, and it was nice to see you give him definitely a run for his money. So I'll let you go here, James. It's been great fun talking to you. Great fun seeing you drive for sure. And I love the paint scheme that you've brought here to this race today. So who would you like to give a shout out to for this second place? And we'll hopefully see you up in first place in the future.
That sounds good. Yeah, thanks to Team AV for the car, and you guys for the broadcast, and all the fans at home who watched us race.
All right, sounds good, James. And we will definitely catch you up here in the future for another first place. I can pretty much guarantee it with that performance. So we'll see you up here soon, and hopefully you can maybe bring one back even in Rockingham next week.
We'll see. Rockingham's also not quite my best, but the week after, I promise.
All right, we'll hold you to that then, won't we, Mason?
You know what? I think after tonight, James Miller, if we're gonna hold you to that. So not next week at Rockingham, but at Nashville Fairgrounds for the Music City 250. If you're not up here in first, there's gonna be problems.
I'm good with that. Nashville is my track. That sounds perfect.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you for joining us up here in the booth tonight, James. Congratulations on second place. I know it was a tough fought one for yourself and for the rest of the field here tonight, but we're going to go ahead and let you go and get yourself a well-deserved cold one after a very, very tough race here tonight at Circuit of the Americas.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a good one. All right, that was James Miller out of the booth here, taking home second place. And last, and certainly not going to be least here, the lean, mean Yellow Banana, the 70 machine, coming home with the win here tonight. Aaron Smith. Oh, man, as we get a beautiful view of you taking it two wheels over one of the curbs here. Aaron, you had a phenomenal performance here at Circuit of the Americas. A little bit of uncertainty with that first caution coming out. Yourself and James Miller having a little bit of a duke out there for that lead spot, but yourself able to keep calm, cool, collected, and back up into the front. And from there, it was all the Aaron Smith show from that point on. Aaron, I mean, we know that you are kind of the driver to beat when it comes to road courses, and tonight that definitely seemed to show again once more for the Lone Star 200. I mean, what can I ask here, Aaron? I mean, what kind of preparation did you do coming into today's race, if any at all? Or, I mean, what was kind of your expectations for today's race?
Yeah, I was hoping I'd be quick tonight. I heard that they took a little bit of grip out of Coda's surface in the last update, so I did a lap just to test that and was able to run I think it was a 2:19 without my Oculus. So we worked off of that in the practice session today, and fortunately we made it work.
Yeah, and it definitely seemed to work pretty well for yourself here. Now, a lot of drivers, you know, they were talking how the track resurfacing definitely made getting grip here a little bit more of a problem here. Did you happen to find yourself in that same situation, or did you have a pretty solid car here tonight?
Yeah, after about 10 laps, the tires did start to melt in the rear. I had a little bit of trouble with that toward the end of both runs, but fortunately we got that caution in the middle of the race, right around where I would have pit if we stayed green, and we were able to work out from there.
Yeah, it definitely was a good thing to witness here up here in the booth. But Aaron, I mean, coming home with double-digit wins for yourself for this season, finally, it seems like you've been chasing that goal here for a little while now. Now that you've cracked 10 wins for the season, looking forward into not only next week at Rockingham, but for the rest of the season. I mean, what's kind of your goals here now?
I'm not sure if I'll be able to run the full races for the rest of the season, but I know that I can win at every track we've got left. So if I can show up for the whole race, I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out for me.
Well, I love to hear it. It's always good to see yourself out here on track and giving these drivers a good run for their money here in every race that you attend here. But Aaron, before we let you go and celebrate your victory here tonight at Circuit of the Americas, anyone watching the broadcast, anyone at home or in the pit crew that you want to shout out and thank before we go?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank James Miller for putting on a pretty good fight there on the beginning of the second half of the race. He kept it clean. It was a pretty fun battle there for the first 3 laps of it. And I'd like to thank the folks at the Velocity Racing League for putting the show on, y'all broadcasting, and everyone for watching. Looking forward to getting back at it next week.
Absolutely. Love to hear it. Thank you for joining us up here tonight, Aaron, and looking forward to seeing you next week at Rockingham.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good one. All righty, folks. That is going to conclude our post-race interviews for today's race with Aaron Smith out of the booth. Gareth, what a race that we had here today. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of, well, struggling that we've seen throughout the field. Now that we have, I think, officially, nope, there's still one more road course left on the schedule, and it is Laguna Seca. That's going to be another one to witness. But with this one out of the books, next week at Rockingham, it is another crown jewel race. 5 drivers have another opportunity to win $100. Gareth, I mean, what are your thoughts on tonight's race, and what are you expecting going into next week?
Well, my thoughts on tonight's race were that tonight's race was much more spectacular than I thought. I thought that some of the cars would actually get stretched out and there wouldn't be so many battles, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I'm sure the viewers were at home, that we got quite a lot of entertainment out of that race, and especially with that mid-race caution that neither of us expected to see. That really threw a spanner in the works, as they say. So that was fantastic to see some of the racing that came from that. Like you said, with Miller and Aaron racing side by side quite a lot of that run, so it was nice to see that kind of competition up front, and because we're used to in this series seeing 1 or 2 drivers really lead from the offset, so it was nice to see some kind of nice competition anyway. But yeah, so next week, heading into Rockingham, it should be a bit of a doozy, and maybe a bit chaotic, maybe completely clean. It's a track that I would not expect to have no sort of no battles. Basically, that was a lot of negatives. But essentially, what I'm saying is that I think you're gonna have quite a lot of action around Rockingham for sure.
I couldn't agree more. I look forward to the action next week for the Phenom Paint Shop 250. For myself, for Gareth McAllister, that is going to conclude our coverage of the Lone Star 200 here at Circuit of the Americas. Folks, I want to thank each and every single one of you for tuning in and watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Catch all the action that we have here on Team Goon Squad 7 days a week. And as always, we will see you all same time, same place next week for Phenom Paint Shop 250 at Rockingham Speedway. Folks, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you all next week.